All right, if everything went according to plan, we are on Locals, we are on Rumble, we are on X. Oh, we're still on YouTube.
I'm in X prison right now for 12 hours.
Are you really?
Yeah, I just got the notification. In a millisecond, I was put into X prison for 12 hours. Tim Pool said, I don't think Biden should go to the Middle East. What if he gets hurt? And I wrote, I said, I hope he falls down the stairs, right? Within a millisecond, I hadn't even finished the joke, and I was put into Twitter prison.
Wow.
Yeah.
Maybe I shouldn't run the Trump Olympics little video that's been going around on Friday.
Every single attempt by me in 2 or 3 years to file a report on virulently anti-Semitic things that have come, and other, not just anti-Semitic, other things at me, they would reply in a minute or two, I don't see anything here. Thank you. No matter what boxes I checked, threaten to kill me, threaten to kill my children, blow up my house. They go, sorry, we just don't see it. Fall down the stairs, you're dead. That's it.
Nothing careful. We'll probably be dead here.
Yeah.
I mean, they run quickly together. And we can't talk about people stumbling upstairs.
I don't know. I mean, it's not like I called for the offing of a cat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I know. I just saw he falls on the stairs. I mean, that could mean anything. Of course it's a joke, but it's just such a mild joke.
Especially because you said up the stairs. That's the joke. And people don't usually, it's a unique skill. Not many people fall up.
I think they're highly monitoring his feed, not mine. I mean, I was on his feed.
Anything's possible.
Because I've said far worse things on mine and nothing's happened.
Well, you did cross 10,000 Twitter followers, so maybe.
I crossed it a long time ago. Remember that guy sent me the shadow banning? I was shadow banned for 8 freaking years, apparently. I probably have 1 million. I don't. They've shadow banned.
Oh, good Lord. Well, thank you, Bob, and thank you, Jelmer. Yes, we did cross the threshold. We'll definitely be probably talk about it a little bit on Friday, celebrate it. Thank you, everybody, so much. It does mean a lot. It really means a lot. So now please subscribe on Rumble. Go to Locals.
That's funny.
We do deeply appreciate it. Today we are going to do officially the JFK Q&A. However, we're going to do something a little different later on in the stream. The majority of the time we're going to be here on YouTube and Rumble.
Okay.
And then we are going to cut YouTube and Rumble both and finish out on Locals. There's a link in the pinned comment. There's a link in the description. There's a link in the Rumble description. You can see it down here. You can follow us for free. So we're not going to hide the content or anything when we go on Locals. It won't be behind the paywall. It's just we'll finish up the last bit on Locals for an after party, I think Viva Barnes calls it. I just wanted to announce that early on so everybody knows. And as far as questions go, standard rule, if you will, please write the word question or make it clear that that's a question. So it's just easier for me to pull it up. I will do the best that I can. And we've got the first one here from Peter Crescito. And Peter actually wrote a question, Mark. Note that.
Thank God.
I mean, how many times have we gotten a super chat?
Yeah.
So, okay, sorry if you already answered this question. After Kennedy was shot, but he survived, was there a backup plan to make sure he didn't leave the hospital alive?
I don't know. The backup plan was to go, Peter. Sorry about your loss, by the way. The backup plan was to go to the LBJ Ranch the following day, where he would never have been allowed to escape. There was a fundraising barbecue. Very few people know about this. A Democratic fundraiser scheduled for the LBJ Ranch on Sunday. And from what I understand, there was a plan there with multiple snipers to not let him leave the ranch, which is a pretty big ranch. And that's the only thing I know about the JFK after party assassination plans if he had survived. I mean, clearly, I believe the buffer was the trademark, which Connolly fought so vociferously to secure as the place for the speech. The trademark, according to multiple Secret Service sources, was unprotectable. It was supposed to be at the Women's Building, further away from the trademark. People from Dallas know where the Women's Building is. The John Connolly fought and lied to Bruno, the advance man, and was psychotic about getting the trademark as the site of JFK's speech. And I think that's what allows Connolly to sit in that limo without worrying, because I think Connolly, in the back of his mind, knew that the trademark was the location of the attempt to finish off JFK. And it probably was a backup attempt. There was also Jim Braden's roommate, who was in the hotel along the Stemmons Freeway with a high-powered rifle in a room that opened up onto the freeway. So that was another step. Braden, and when Braden came back to the room, the guy was already gone. This is Jim Braden. If you want to see the episode, we have an episode just on Jim Braden, who met with the Hunt's son the day before, and Jack Ruby. So there was that, a window facing the Stemmons Freeway before the trademark. So that's the only ones I know about, and that's 3. You know, maybe there were others.
We also have a John Connolly episode if you want to learn more about the argument and everything that went down there. Very, very detailed. And I'm sure they were able to wreak a lot of havoc in the hospital already and control the doctors. I'm sure that if he seemed to be okay, they could have had something done. It was havoc. I'm sure something could have transpired to.
He was essentially DOA anyway, Eric. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Half of the brain is missing, his skull's missing. I mean, it was just keeping him alive. If it wasn't for that hospital being so close to where the incident happened, he would have expired way before that.
Yeah, and even if they had modern equipment, he still, I'm sure, was brain dead. So I think he was, definitely. All right, this is a sneaky way to get another subject in on the current subject. Mm-hmm. Normally, we try to stay on topic with JFK, but Sergeant Willie found a way to pull in Alec Baldwin.
Oh, yes, way to go.
This is a good way to do it, though. I see New Mexico may be refiling against Alec Baldwin. Will he make it to Pittsburgh?
That's a great question. That's a good question.
Yes, it is, and it's on point
funny.
With the JFK. So
that's very funny.
To answer that question, I don't
know. Yeah, this just he's referring to some story that broke today that they are going to apparently ham sandwich Alec Baldwin, Eric.
Mm-hmm.
It's going back to an independent grand jury just for Baldwin, based on brand new evidence that the new prosecutors have uncovered. We don't really know what that is, but Eric and I surmise it has something to do with the gun being workable or not workable, or something to do with the gun.
That they determined it was, and then it wasn't, and it was, and it's interesting. They do seem to be forgetting Pickle and the others, though. I don't know.
Right. They have decided to go after him.
Yeah.
They have apparently the guns of Navarone have aimed at Alec Baldwin for reasons that we don't know.
Yep, and time will tell. I mean, that case never ends and keeps changing. As a matter of fact, we are coming up in 4 days on the 2-year anniversary of the shooting.
Right.
And
I wonder what's the longest case ever without a resolution in the American history for a murder. I mean, I would love to know what's the longest case ever recorded for not case, for obviously his antitrust stuff goes on for years. I'm just talking about straight up negligent homicide.
When you know the players on day one.
Right. It's where it's not a conspiratorial, let's find the one-armed killer. I wonder what is the longest case on American record of not resolving itself.
I don't know. This has got to be a long one. But by the way, on that same note, 5 days from now, so the day after the anniversary of the shooting, is the anniversary of this channel, too.
Oh, that's
the
more
channel
important.
Turns
I think that's more important.
Well, of course, it's more important. It's us.
Oh, yeah.
But and it is because Bob Tranquilli loves the show. So thank you, Bob.
Bob Tranquilli.
And John Hyde with $2. Thank you very much. Philip Martin, following the rules. Thank you. Question.
That's nice. Oh, that's two questions. Hold on. That's two questions. That's two.
Okay. Well, yeah.
That's two questions. Well, we don't know. We believe it was Larry Crawford. We did that. If you want to look at the Larry Crawford episode, you will see my analysis of the Crawford Tippit shooting with the second man, I believe, was Jack Ruby. You could talk to Greg Parker down in Australia. I did a piece for his website a number of years ago about Larry Crawford's jacket being found at the crime scene underneath a car. That was not Oswald's jacket. It belonged to Larry Crawford. Why do we know that? Because the jacket had a unique label. It was made in Hollywood, California, a place that Larry Crawford lived in before he became I guess a roustabout would be the terminology for Jack Ruby, right? I mean, when you work in a carnival for someone, you're a roustabout. Yeah.
Oh, Barker.
Barker, roustabout, whatever he was. But he was really a male prostitute or a gigolo in a lot of ways. But Jack Ruby being gay, George Senator, his roommate being gay, Larry Crawford, I believe, was a male prostitute on top of that, claimed to be years later, claimed to be a hitman. So, I mean, I can only go by what the guy said years later. Tried to flee, is apprehended by the FBI and dragged back to Dallas, where he testifies for the Warren Commission. And it's really the Warren Commission grilling him about every name in Ruby's personal phone book.
True. Yeah, by the way,
but I think it was Crawford. I think I don't know the motivation for the killing of Tippit, but I think it was Larry Crawford. I mean, and the Warren. I'm sorry, Eric. One last thing. Sorry. I'm sorry. The Warren Commission says, "Why would you flee Dallas? You're not presuming that you are involved in the killing of Kennedy." Because he says in the Warren Commission testimony, he was afraid that they would pin the murder on him. And the guy says, "What? Pin the murder of Kennedy on you? Why would you be so presumptuous as to presume that?" And it wasn't the murder of Kennedy. It's the murder of Tippit. And that's why he flees.
Okay. We also cover all this in the Tippit episode, too. I think we go more into Ruby and some of the witnesses in the Tippit episode than Crawford. But anyway.
Yeah, it's blurry to me, these episodes, because the whole thing is one long narrative in my mind. So I forget which is which.
All right. And Chris Banks said a roustabout is an oil field worker. Okay.
So well, what about Elvis? What did Elvis do? And wasn't Elvis a roustabout in Viva Las Vegas, or not Viva Las Vegas?
I'm not sure. I know I've heard Carney. I've heard Barker's. I've heard, Freak Show, all different things. Here's a unique question. I bet you haven't seen this one.
What?
Question: what about the hypothesis from a very well-respected French investigator that JFK was living in Russia and just recently died?
It's funny. I've been looking into that recently, and it's on the cusp. So I'm not going to say anything because it may hamper my research, Feminem.
Okay. Pamela, thank you very much for the congratulations. You are aware the LBJ asked Humphrey what he really desired, and Hubert Humphrey answered a parade in Dallas.
It's funny because the Humphrey run for the presidency, LBJ had to secure the idea in his own mind that he could control Humphrey before he resigned, not resigned, but announced that he was not going to run. And he made sure that Humphrey would be his puppet all during the campaign. I don't know about the presidency, but the campaign. He did not want Humphrey going soft on Vietnam. And if Humphrey had gone soft on Vietnam and begins to go soft on Vietnam near the end, he almost beats Nixon because he starts to turn on the war literally weeks before the election. And his poll numbers go through the roof. And that's what LBJ was trying to avoid, because it would have been humiliating to LBJ to be endorsing a guy who was opposed to his foreign policy. But when Humphrey does begin to do that on his own, it made it a damn close election, Eric.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All right. And from what you said, if the election was a week later, it might have gone that way.
I think so. I think so. A week later, I think you would have had President Humphrey.
Wow. Pat M. questions. Any truth to Roscoe White Oswald was never on the 6th floor? What event or at what time did he figure out he was a patsy?
I think he figured out he was a patsy when he was arrested at the Texas Theater. And that's when he realized he was a patsy, when they dragged his ass out of there. I don't know what Roscoe White has to do with this, but he was never on the 6th floor prior to the time that they were talking about. He was on the 6th floor a million times, but not for the lunchtime period that JFK was there, because he was in the domino room on the 1st floor and then went to the domino room, just so people understand, is the 1st floor lunchroom in the Texas School Book Depository. It was reserved essentially, unofficially, de facto for minorities. And Oswald, as a desegregationist, ate with the blacks, and maybe there was a Mexican or two in there, I'm not really sure, but he ate lunch in the domino room with the blacks, Givens and some of the other blacks, Bonnie Ray Williams, usually on a regular basis. On this day, like he did, he went upstairs to the 2nd floor, which is a clean, pristine lunchroom with the Coke machine and the nice stuff that you see in the movie. That's the actual restaurant in the cafeteria, whatever you want to call it, lunchroom that has the soda machine. So Oswald asks one of the secretaries, the reason we know he's there, besides Truly and the Dallas motorcycle cops seeing him there moments after the assassination, we also know that a secretary changed $1 for him so he could use the Coke machine. So that's another witness that puts him in that lunchroom. And he just went upstairs to get it, but he was literally on the 1st floor. We also know that Bonnie Ray Williams was in and created, in his own architectural brilliance, the sniper's nest itself, so he could eat the chicken bone sandwich, have his Dr. Pepper, and smoke his menthol cigarettes. As Walter Cronkite says, the sniper ate lunch while he waited for the president. Well, the sniper might have been Bonnie Ray Williams then, because that's the guy who created the sniper's nest. And it's so funny, because when I took Eric up there and we looked at those stupid box configurations, one of the reasons that the Dallas police is up there for so many hours is they're creating the evidence. They're putting the 3 cartridge shells on the ground parallel, an inch apart, but they also made multiple configurations of the sniper's nest. They tried out different boxes, because the box configuration by Bonnie Ray Williams is him sitting on a box and making a box table out of the boxes so he can eat lunch. How do we know that? Because all the wrappings were there from his lunch, including the chicken sandwich. Okay, so either that was Oswald's, or the guy was a slob and didn't clean up, but the creation of the sniper's nest itself, with quotation marks, is Bonnie Ray Williams just throwing boxes down to make a little, table for himself. Okay. So what happens? Dallas police goes up there and they begin to create a sniper's nest. Well, how do you do that? All right, let's take a look, boys. Put the box over there. How does that look? Nah, that doesn't work. Okay, put the box.
Not quite right.
Right. So no. They move them around, because you got to put the box on the ledge and put an imaginary rifle, or the rifle, out the window. Well, how would you know that, Mark? What are you, a brainiac? Well, luckily for us, the Dallas police took photos of the different configurations of the sniper's nest. That's how we know it. This is not rocket science, people. They took photos of their own configurations, and those photos I think we put on Locals. I don't know if we still have them up there, but.
Well, my favorite part of it was, and I don't know if Mark knows, I pointed it out while I was there, they had photos of the day, and then they had a configuration in the museum right next to each other. So you could stand there, you could look at the photo, you look at the configuration. They don't match. It's the craziest thing in the world.
Well, no, but I'm saying there's actual photos of the original boxes minutes before in different configurations from that minute. From that hour. They were up there for hours doing this stuff.
Yeah, crazy. Al Gonzalez. Mark, are you surprised that D. Eugenio is going to Pittsburgh, not Dallas?
Well, I'm not privy to his motivations as to why he's going to one to the other. I mean, people get paid for these things, and who knows? Maybe there was a bidding war to get to Eugenio. I would certainly pay to see him. You know, maybe they outbid him or something. What do I know?
Could be.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the Alec Baldwin draw.
Yeah, maybe it's you know what? Rob Reiner.
Rob Reiner apparently is working with a couple of these people on a podcast series. So
Go on.
There may be a little something there, and I wonder if Eugenio is involved. But
yeah, he might be. That's true.
All right, Jetwing. I recently watched that documentary on the Zapruder film.
Which documentary? The Mel Torme documentary? I mean, how do you put? You gotta be a little bit more specific. I recently watched that documentary. Oh, that one. Any truth the Zapruder film was doctored. We're going to talk to Jim Groden, to Robert Groden.
Yep. So let's table that. But right now
we're going to talk to Robert Groden. I never believed it was. He doesn't believe it was. People would like to believe it is because the CIA is very embarrassed that they allowed this guy to film the assassination. I think they thought they would just muscle the cameras out of his hand, which they did to everyone else except Zapruder. They muscled the cameras out of everyone's hands. So I guess they figured, all right, if somebody films it, we're watching from up here in the office, the assassination, which is always interesting. We could go down and get the cameras. So they do get the cameras from everybody. You know what I mean? They get everybody's cameras except Zapruder. And why don't they get Zapruder? Zapruder's a tough cookie. This is a New York Jew who's got a garment business in Dallas, who's the head of his own company. He's not a pushover. He's not intimidated by them. In fact, he sticks with his camera and his film. He won't let it out of his hands, even though they came at him with shotguns, Eric. He never buckled Zapruder. So, I mean, now to say, well, Zapruder was in on it, he was a coward, it's a crock of shit. It's a crock of shit.
Didn't he get paid for it?
Yeah.
Hold on to it to get paid.
That's what I'm saying. He wanted to get paid. It wasn't political for Zapruder. He was a businessman. So, and years later, his family gets, I mean, this is like maybe 15 years ago, his family got a huge buyout from the National Archives to buy the film officially from the family. So that was the legend. That was the what he left his family was all that money from the government.
Yeah, I mean, well, most important film of the 20th century, possibly. Super sticker from John Hyde. Thank you very much. Jossa1. Question: how many witnesses does it take to confirm Oswald wasn't on that top floor? I get confused on that when watching Destiny Betrayed. Well, there's a lot of witnesses.
There's a lot of witnesses. I mean, okay, so you take Robert Givens. Robert Givens is a black junkie, right? He leaves, despite what everybody says. Everyone leaves. Givens leaves. They can't find Givens. He's got a track record as a junkie in Dallas, another black maintenance worker who's on the 5th floor. So they flip Givens. And Givens says, yeah, he was on the 6th floor. You know, I heard the roof, dust was coming through. He went up in the elevator, blah, blah, blah. How difficult it is to flip a black junkie in 1963 in Dallas, Texas, to make him do your bidding. How difficult was it to flip Buell Wesley Frazier when you're threatening him with the electric chair, in Texas? I mean, people, think of self-preservation, Eric.
Yeah, totally agree.
But as for witnesses, he's right. I mean, it doesn't matter. Look how long it's taken for the girl on the stairs book to come out and all these different witnesses to come out. They were scared. They were, told that they would be, something would happen to them. And look how many people had something happen to them, Eric.
Yeah, that's true. John B., there's a WFAA brief film clip of Pete Barnes dusting the passenger side of the Tippit car for prints. Have there ever been any results? Does anyone know?
Nobody ever found what those prints were, whatever was on there. There were so many cop prints. There were so many cop prints that they weren't able to discern whose prints were whose.
Okay, makes sense. All right, so back
what is it? Tippit's birthday today or something?
I don't know, but we're gonna figure out this mystery of the day. Okay,
right.
So back to it. Roustabout is an occupational term. It referred to a worker with broad-based, non-specific skills. In particular, show or circus workers who handle materials for construction. On fairgrounds.
And that's what he did. That's what Larry Crawford did. He helped build a tent that he put in the twist device that he was selling. This was a Texas County Fair in Dallas. Oh, maybe it's Fort Worth, please. I know there's a difference by an inch. Jesus Christ, leave me alone. I don't know generically where it was, but it was either Fort Worth or Dallas State Fair. Anyway, Crawford was involved in building and staffing and running the tent. I think Ruby was essentially the barker for his own product, and he was paying Crawford a minimum hourly wage, whether it was in cigarettes and cash, I'm not really sure, or both, to staff the booth. So to me, that's a roustabout.
Right. And oil field workers, a roughneck.
Yeah.
And then somebody saying behind the scenes worker at a carny, sometimes called a roughie, handling various stuff in security. So there's a lot of names. Okay, we're never going to get resolved, but
I wasn't losing sleep over it, but apparently some of the autistic people might be.
All right. Question: Donald Sutherland bit in JFK. How accurate is that with regards to what he proclaimed, or Hollywood fluff?
Well, okay, so it's not fluff, or it's Fletcher Prouty who's a colonel. I mean, whether you believe Colonel Prouty or not, Sutherland is playing a guy named Colonel Fletcher Prouty, who is Mr. X in the movie. But I mean, I don't know how accurate Prouty's testimony or statements are. He was a consultant to Oliver on the film. He's later revealed at the National Press Club in Washington when the movie came out, and Oliver brought him with him and revealed in the press conference, which was very dramatic, by the way. If you could find that on YouTube, he reveals, because they start deriding him, saying Sutherland is this made-up character in the press conference, and Oliver reveals that no, he's not. He's Colonel Fletcher Prouty, who is sitting right here and will be available. No. I mean, it's really dramatic.
Well played.
Well played. I mean, well played by Oliver. And he will be available for your questions after the press conference, which he was. Whether you believe Fletcher Prouty is another question. But wow, that was dramatic.
Yeah, and good drip, though. I mean, that's like a perfect setup to get that impact.
Yeah.
All right, Frank Holmes says, question: I just watched JFK X, solving crime of the century, and laughed all the way through it. Have either of you seen it? Where did these researchers come from?
Well, I haven't seen it. I've never heard of it. And where do they come from? They come from the deep state. That's where they come from. It's the 60th anniversary. If not now, when?
Good point.
I mean, where did that guy come from who was in Max Good's documentary? Who was the
the handler?
Max Holland. Holland, who wrote a number of books, produced a number of documentaries for Nat Geo. It was always Max Holland. And it turned out, as I had learned years before, that he served as the curator and director of an obscure website called CIA.gov.
Gotta love that. Anthony Hawking, is there enough material for a standalone episode on the Zapruder film?
What do you mean by standalone episode on the Zapruder film?
I don't know. Well, we're going to talk to Robert Grote. That's as far as we're going to go.
About Zapruder himself, the man? Or what?
I don't know. I mean, I guess about the film and the claims, or
it's really of no interest to me personally, because I don't believe it was altered. So I mean, the film is a gift from God, and it is what it is. I mean, I guess you could do an episode of his film stock, his camera, and how he got up there and almost fell off, and his secretary had to hold him up because he had fear of heights, and she was holding his leg during the filming. So yeah.
Well, thank you for the second super chat on the same question. Let me see. Question: shortly after the shooting, a man was arrested in Fort Worth, and the media reported him as a suspect.
Yeah, there's a little guy. He might have been a patsy. I forget his name. He had rifles in his trunk of his car. He was brought in. There's film footage of him being brought in before Oswald into Fritz's office and interrogated. He was released. You know, I don't know what the deal was with that guy, but he looked like another possible patsy. Yeah, possible double or patsy.
Does his name has never come up, or
no? I don't know his name. I forget his name, but his name there's quite a bit of documentation on him.
Oh, okay. I don't know. Jack Ruby might have been one of the shooters with Tippit. Yeah.
Well, that with Tippit, yeah, not with JFK. I mean, he was in the Dallas Morning News offices about his weekly ad in the paper. So I don't know. He specifically wanted to have an alibi, I believe, Ruby, and then goes to Parkland, where he's seen by a veteran journalist who knows him very well. And that journalist testified before the Warren Commission and wrote a book called Who is Jack Ruby? He testified with the Warren Commission that he knew Ruby for years. He said, this was Jack Ruby. I talked to Jack Ruby. He was at Parkland. He's following me around. I know Jack Ruby really well. So the Warren Commission decided, you, sir, are wrong. You don't know Jack Ruby. That was their final take on this guy pinning Jack Ruby in Parkland.
Okay, well then, why not? But there's another guy who claimed he was at Parkland, but the Warren Commission weren't interested. Paul Landis.
Was he? Yeah, apparently they didn't care about him then, but now they care about him.
Well, he was busy dropping the magic bullet, right? Remember?
Right. Well, that's if you think he was racing against Sam Kinney, who claims he dropped the magic bullet onto the stretcher, or Jack Ruby dropped the magic bullet on the stretcher, or my mother, Judith Bloom, may have dropped the magic bullet on the stretcher.
But it definitely wasn't Judith Ferry Baker dropping the magic bullet.
No, although in her new book, that might be the next volume, because as each book comes out, so does the expansion of her intimate relationships to more players. Ruby, Marcello, each book, she now remembers under sodium pentothal or something that she had relationships with other people in the genre.
Well, maybe she has her own James Robinault who helps her.
She probably does
surface these.
Well, she's going to be somewhere. She's going to be at one of those conferences, right?
Yeah, well, she'll be in town. She's in town. I'm already. All right. Did you hear what Judge Andrew Napolitano said Trump told him as to why he didn't release the JFK files?
Is this a trick question?
Napolitano has said in an interview, like Trump said that something like you can't. I don't remember, like Pompeo scared the shit out of him. It's kind of the impression I get, but I'd have to get the exact footage to see it. And I hate secondhand like that. Mm-hmm. That's kind of tough. But on that note, we were just talking about questions of Jim DiEugenio. We keep talking about Pittsburgh. We need to talk about Dallas because we are going to be in Dallas, Mark.
Boy.
In November. And there are only 15 physical tickets left.
What? How's that possible? Really?
Yep.
I'm going to buy some myself just so I can give them.
Yeah.
I may buy them myself.
So, folks, I have links in this description, the Rumble description, even the locals description of this video. I don't have them on X, but you can follow us in any location and find links to there with our discount. There's only 15 physical left. If you can't get a physical, though, fortunately, there is a virtual ticket available, and there's also a download option. That question has come up a few times. How long is a virtual ticket good for? Apparently through the end of the month. But you can buy a download that'll then become available the next day, and you can have it forever.
Oh, I'm going to do. Are you going to do that?
Oh, yeah. Well, you and I are going to be busy interviewing people and not getting a chance to watch some of the stuff.
Right, but that's why we need the download, I think.
Absolutely, yeah. I definitely plan to be getting that. But check it out. Hope to see you there. Pasha. Speculate on what might have happened had JFK lived. Might his presidency have started to look more like RFK Jr.'s current positions, or?
Boy, that's a tough one. I don't know. He might have scattered the CIA to the wind and appointed some daughter-in-law to be the director of the CIA. You know what I mean? So who knows where this would have gone. In terms, well, he just in regards to the CIA, he had created the DIA to replace the CIA, Defense Intelligence Agency, and wanted to dismantle the CIA, and began obviously with getting rid of the general and with Dulles, he wanted the DIA to replace them. And his real beef was the use of military force by the CIA. And he asked his aides and RFK, how the hell did they get hold of weapons and do this stuff? And nobody had a legitimate answer, a legal answer, because it's not in their charter. The thing that he bothered him the most was the military use of force by the CIA, which is supposed to be an information gathering agency for the president. That's why he started the DIA and wanted them to replace them, because there would be military oversight, military training, and if they did use light arms or arms, there would be the Pentagon overseeing it. Now, that being said, Amaryllis Fox, one of the great CIA operatives of all time, says she was trained with an M4 and a Glock, but didn't carry them to kill anyone during her 10 years as a CIA agent, as a non-official cover, like Ben Affleck in Argo, as she keeps pointing out.
And by the way, for all the people who are going to yell at me, because yes, I've interviewed CIA people. They're not agents, they're officers. We know that. Agents are the people that they recruit.
Well, she was a non-official cover, covert operative, non-official cover, meaning you had no connection to the agency. Even though she went to the farm, she trained at the farm, she was an official member of the agency and an employee of the agency, according to her. She had no cover. So in other words, she was an art dealer in Shanghai with another husband agent named Fox, living in Shanghai.
Yeah, more on her to come. Trust us. So, more on her to come. All right. T. Logan, the channel No True Flags Here, posted a vid that after the TSBD was locked down, they let the workers out one by one with a cop taking names, and he signed out a Harvey Lee Oswald.
Not true at all.
Heard that? Okay.
Not true at all.
All right. Asharad, question. What is the source that establishes Marina was a honeypot participant? How old was she then?
Oh, she was hot. She was pot. She was honey. And I mean, you could go back. She was kicked out of St. Petersburg because she had been caught with a diplomat, I think, from Poland or Austria. There was a sex situation in St. Petersburg where she was working as a honeypot there. That's why she was sent to Minsk to live with her aunt and uncle, her uncle being a NVK or intelligence operative in Minsk. She's then introduced to Lee Harvey Oswald at a dance in Minsk. But the real connection involves her also meeting other Americans in Moscow and Minsk. There's other relationships that she had. And there was a program where Russians used honeypots. I mean, she was smoking hot. She was about a year younger than him. And what else can you say?
And they did it a lot. I mean,
they did it a lot.
There's an article we just brought up a couple of weeks back with a woman coming out, going through a training course on how to seduce.
Oh, right. Yeah. How to do it. Yeah.
And she's a KGB or whatever.
Her real job, she was training to be a pharmacist. That never came to fruition. She then married a guy who was, after Oswald, another deep state intelligence officer who apparently smacked her around as she claimed Oswald did, and she divorced him. So that's another story, separate story. But, they told these operatives, our operatives, that they would not be allowed to separate from these women any longer when they came back to the United States. The Soviets, what the Soviets would do would be to hook them up with either a military embassy guard, which happened later on with Clayton Lonetree, I think, one of the U.S. Embassy guards. He was also honeypotted, and they would come back here, marry them. The wife would then get into some domestic dispute with them, separate, divorce, and then be able to operate around the country freely. What Angleton had told them at the farm or wherever they originally were briefed on how to do this program, the 13 phony defectors, they were told that they were not going to be allowed to separate from the women. If they did bring back the women, they were not going to put up with this anymore, this cutting them loose and letting them roam around the country unmolested. Now, that being said, James Hosty, the FBI agent, was assigned to Marina Oswald to keep an eye on her. That's what Hosty was doing. So she couldn't run around the city of Dallas doing crazy crap and not be watched. So Hosty was assigned to keep an eye on Marina Oswald.
The Putrid Department. Interesting name. Hey, Mark, have you heard of an obscure oil guy named Billy Byers Sr.? He was a Tyler, Texas oil boy and friends with Murchison, Ike, and Hoover, among others. Apparently, he had run-ins with Jack Ruby.
Who didn't have run-ins with Jack Ruby? He pistol whipped so many people and threw them down that stairs at the Carousel Club that a lot of people had run-ins with Jack Ruby. He was quick to pull out that pistol and use the butt handle to hit people over the head if they, got out of line with the girls. So I don't know who Billy Byers is, but I wouldn't be surprised. That's for sure.
Rustus Android. I worked with an old black guy who claimed he was there. I asked him, how many shots did you hear? His answer, there was a whole lot of shooting going on.
Okay. Well, he's got good ears. I mean, there was suppressors, there was echoes, there was, multiple points. There's, it's hard to tell. I mean, the 3-shot thing is drilled into whoever they speak to. They just go, we're only allowing for 3 shots. How many shots did you hear? I heard 3 shots. You know what I mean? Like when they come to you as a witness and say, we're only allowing 3 shots to be the official record. How many did you hear? I mean, it's kind of.
Or even more direct. There are 3 shots, correct?
Yeah. Whatever the the phraseology. Ask Beverly Oliver about that.
Well, and if I recall, John Connolly said they're going to shoot us all. Like he was reacting to shots everywhere, and these guys were World War II vets, so they were.
Well, Kellerman, who was sitting in the jump seat in the limo, said it was raining bullets down upon us. That's the Secret Service trained agent in charge, Roy Kellerman, that day. These bullets were raining down upon us. Okay, I don't know what that means numerically, but yeah. I think if you're like, do.
Oh, yeah. Question. Why was Tippit's passenger window rolled up in the photos?
Why was it rolled down? I mean, who knows why? Again, people presume the photos are the final position and the position of things before the photo was taken. You know also, what I mean?
It was November 22nd, and we're in Dallas at that time, and it's not summer. No, I mean, it could have been a cool day. I don't know what it was like. All right, JD Daly. Question. What is the one thing you thought was true in all of the JFK assassination stories that turned out to be false? And congrats on 100K.
One thing that was true that turned out to be false. Let me think about that.
When you were a kid, that there was one shooter.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah,
a low gun man. You probably thought that. I mean,
yeah, I did think that. Everybody did at that time. Yeah. Well, a lot of stuff. I mean, I thought Connolly had nothing to do with it. Then I found out Connolly had stuff to do with it. I mean, there's people that I didn't know that Tip O'Neill had that conversation with Kenny O'Donnell in his memoir years later, saying, "Why did you flip your testimony? I never would have done that." This is Tip O'Neill, the Speaker of the House, with Kenny O'Donnell. I didn't know that. I didn't know that Ralph Yarborough was intimidated, the senator from Texas, repeatedly by Secret Service, trying to strong arm him into flipping his story. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. I mean, every revelation was a flip,
Mark, Eric, y'all are true guardians of history. I tell everyone I work with in the courthouse in Montgomery County, Texas, that is interested to watch. Y'all got judges that are fans. Congrats on 100K. Hey, well, we've got one federal judge who's a fan.
Who? Yeah. What's her name? I forgot her name now. Yeah.
Nancy.
She was great. Yeah, what a great fan she was.
Oh, yeah.
A Texas federal judge. She knew everybody.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Old Man in Chairs. Thanks for recommending Whitaker Chambers' book, Witness.
What a great book. Yeah.
It's great. Alger Hiss was a family friend, and my father always insisted he was innocent.
Well, I don't think there's any debate about that now, except by the Marxists who will never let a bone go. I mean, you could have documentation, video, deathbed confessions. They will deny into the afterlife if they get their teeth into a story that they don't want to let go of. I mean, the Venona cables prove it. The Matroikin files, notes prove it. I mean, Chambers, the book is a work of art. I mean, it's considered one of the 25 greatest books ever written, you know, in terms of autobiographical narrative. Just a fantastic read. Not that he makes anything up, but I mean, just he was the face behind the scenes, the hidden face of Time magazine. This guy wrote thousands and thousands of articles that every one of us read because Time magazine had no bylines, Eric, to the articles. So he wrote all those articles. He was a beast of a writer, you know, for years. And Henry Luce, the famous owner, would be the editor with him late at night before it came out, editing Time magazine. I mean, it's just magazine history, really.
Well, and back then, I mean, keep in mind how few options there were. So to be behind the scenes behind Time magazine,
wow,
is hugely talented. You know, it's not like now where there's 50,000 blogs. There's a lot of different things. No,
it's
only
just
a handful of outlets, and they're very well respected.
Keep in mind, Newsweek is a Operation Mockingbird version of Time magazine. It's a poor man's version of Time magazine. And one of the editors there, the guy who was the Whittaker Chambers of Newsweek, was Frank Gibney, Alex Gibney's father, who was part of Operation Mockingbird and a CIA operative. And keep your eyes open for Alex Gibney's new CIA hatchet job that's coming out through Universal Pictures, documentary on Elon Musk. This is paid for with your tax dollars through the CIA, through Universal, to Alex Gibney, the son of CIA operative Frank Gibney. You heard it here.
Yeah, you did. Thank you for the super sticker, John. Rust is Android. Literally every question I have had about the JFK shooting has been answered through the series, and I am smarter for it. Thank you.
Well, these are just my opinions, folks. I mean, I'm not answering these questions as an expert. Please do your own research. Everything I say here is my opinion based on what I've read and my research as a reporter and everything else, plus time, plus interviews, plus blah, blah, blah. But please, you know, do your own research on this stuff. Do not take my word for it.
Okay. And T. Logan, I also just finally found the audio of Lee Harvey Oswald and Tippit in Minsk. It's creepy and surreal. It's buried on YouTube in case anyone interested. I'm interested.
Okay. Ernst Titovitz and I became friends. And he sent me his autographed copy of his book. He told me stuff about his relationship. He was Oswald's wingman and the KGB eyes on Oswald in Minsk. They went and picked up chicks together. They went to college dormitories with women and picked up girls. I mean, the stories about Titovitz, who becomes a medical doctor, becomes a professor of science, was a KGB agent, I think a decathlon athlete. On top of that, he's an amazing guy, Ernst Titovitz.
Will he be an episode?
Maybe, I don't know. It's not an American story. It's kind of a Russian story.
Oh,
but
yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So, but Titovitz and I developed a relationship in the mid 2000s or early 2000s, and fascinating guy, incredible insight into Oswald, including, again, the same situation where he wants Oswald, with the tapes he's referring to, are Oswald teaching him American slang. So Oswald begins to enact scenes from movies on tape for Titovitz, so Titovitz can learn the different accents of the United States. So Oswald is doing Brooklyn accents, New Orleans accents, Southern accents on tape for Ernest Titovitz, which is really interesting.
I mean, I thought Titovitz was telling you, like Bill O'Reilly, that Oswald was a rube that could barely put words together.
That's insane. The performances by Oswald are great. I mean, just the different accents, and Titovitz is taping it from supposedly, you know, for himself. They always have some motivation for doing these tapes, but you know, like Ruth Payne trying to learn Russian, you know, after she is teaching Russian at a school, you know, that kind of stuff.
Wow, amazing.
But Titovitz is a fascinating character, no doubt about it. And very few people know about him at all. And he was because what Oswald wanted to do was assemble human intelligence in Minsk, and human intelligence, which is what this girl was doing in Shanghai, by the way, this Amaryllis Fox. Human intelligence involves the mundane. It involves how your TV cable system works, how your phone works, how your bus system works, how your library system works, how your department store system works. That's what they needed to know so they could fake it later on. It's not.
Yeah, when they came here, they needed to know that. And I can tell you, because I've interviewed Jack Barsky multiple times, who snuck in here for 16 years, not being discovered. They had people over there, Americans, building fake stuff. Now, ironically, when he came over across the Canadian border, he wound up in like the blackest part of Chicago because he didn't hit the right spot. He was, oh God, what do I do? So,
well, again, Marina is mailing back stuff from Dallas to Minsk, and that includes Scientific American Magazine, Reader's Digest, Science Magazine. She's mailing stuff back. You needed a physical human being to do this, and she was doing what he did in Minsk. She learned how the hospital system worked. She learned all the different things, how TV and radio worked. So if you ever do progressively send the next operative, they can now know how it works to blend in. So you don't look like a jerk off who doesn't know how the bus works. You don't know. You know what I mean? It's really common sense. There were no satellites, Eric. I mean, there was no, Google Earth. You had to physically go there. And that's what Oswald did. And he puts it all in his diary. He tapes this to his chest, his stomach, and she's got some of it on her stomach too, I believe. And they get on the train from Minsk, and they eventually end up in Rotterdam, where they're debriefed in a safe house in Rotterdam, and they turn the diary over. But all of that diary stuff, which was later published, obviously the excerpts are taken out. The diary is Oswald immediately goes to a woman in Fort Worth when he moves in with his brother Robert, pays her $10 an hour or some incredibly large amount of money to begin the transcription of his diary into a typed format, ostensibly for a book. But I think it was really to have a typed copy of his diary. It was all written in his handwriting, some of it in Russian, some of it in English, had a code to it in case, by his own admission, in case he was stopped at the border, that he had a coded diary. But he's not an agent. He couldn't possibly be an agent. I mean,
Well, and I mean, it's obviously weird because the guy was so broke that he had to live like in a boarding house. He's working menial jobs where he could pay that much money for somebody to transcribe it. Obviously, somebody was saying, pay them to do that. Here's cash or whatever.
Well, that I don't know. But I mean, he lived large in Minsk, and because he had this incredible apartment on this river right outside of his apartment with a terrace. And then he had Red Cross money. He had money from the factory, the TV radio factory he was working in. He was getting good money there. He went to the opera, he went to the movies every week. I mean, he lived pretty well in Minsk, bro.
Cool. All right, Jetwing 67. Talk about a magic bullet. What if Ruby's shot didn't kill Oswald? Was there someone to make sure he didn't come out of Park?
Yeah, in fact, LBJ sent a guy there with a pistol sticking out the back of his pants. And that's when he talks to McClellan, I think, the doctor, and says that this is the guy who's going to take a deathbed confession from Oswald. And he goes in and tells the other doctor about it. And there's the guy wearing the smock and the mask like a surgeon, and the pistol handle sticking out the back of his pocket. No one knows who that was, but we presume he was there to make sure Oswald didn't say the wrong thing.
Okay. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. There was dispute about LBJ making that phone call. That dispute is long since dissipated, and it's now accepted history that Oswald's surgeon was called directly by the president of the United States at Parkland, claiming that this guy would take a deathbed confession from Lee Harvey Oswald if there was such a deathbed confession. The White House denied it for years until the operator who didn't like the fact that the doctor was being ridiculed, kicked out of the AMA, by the way. He had to sue the AMA to get his reputation back. And I think it's a good episode.
Charles Crenshaw. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a great story, great American story. The Charles Crenshaw story. I mean, he tells the other doctors that the president of the United States was on the phone. They deny he ever said that because they were intimidated by the Secret Service. So the only one who saved his ass was a number of years later in the 90s, in the 80s, was the secretary of the operator for the phone, who said LBJ did call. I mean, think about that. He sued, the AMA, and he did win the lawsuit for libel and did get a payout. But think about that. You get a call from the president of the United States who tells you want to get a deathbed confession from the assassin, and now you're ridiculed and maligned and ghosted and gaslit into saying it never happened. I mean, think about the stress that guy was under. American hero. Charles Crenshaw is an American hero.
Yeah, it wouldn't be cool at all. No sniper in the nest. Rumble rant. Mark, what Dealey Plaza witnesses testimony do you find the most interesting / meaningful?
Well, the deaf mute, who is up on the trestle, who sees the smoking guns coming from the wooden fence. That guy had nothing to gain. He was completely accurate. He told his father about it. He went to Dallas police. He did everything by the book, except he was a deaf mute. So he did it in sign language. But nevertheless, I mean, one of the great witnesses, he wasn't blind. He was merely a deaf mute. His other senses were more heightened. And I think he was a great witness, and a couple of them, but he was one of the great ones.
All right, Pete Zaw with the Rumble rant. Any thoughts on the attempted assassination on de Gaulle by the French military, the Jackal, in the summer preceding the JFK hit? The French military was pissed about giving up Algiers versus U.S. Cuba.
Right. Well, that's the political motivation. But keep in mind, the de Gaulle assassinations were every other week. You talk about the gang that couldn't shoot straight. I mean, that was their. They literally multiple assassinations on de Gaulle. And they were trying to inform him of these assassination attempts, which I think they did from U.S. intelligence, because we wanted de Gaulle as an ally. But yeah, they did not get him. The Jackal did not get him.
All right. No sniper in the nest. Rumble rant. Oswald supposedly took wrapping paper from the TSBD to make his package to hide his rifle in. Wonder why Buell Wesley Frazier never saw Oswald bring this paper with him on one of his rides in his car.
The whole thing's preposterous, right? I mean, there's no paper. They do it after the assassination. They go up there and they take the paper. There's no Oswald fingerprints on it. The whole thing's a crock of shit. There's no gun oil on it. It's just the wrapping paper that's right there in the Texas School Book Depository. That's where they get the paper from. And they create. That's why they're up there for hours. They create a pseudo package up there with tape and the wrapping paper that the gun came in, quote unquote. That's the paper that it came in. That's the packaging of the curtain rods that Wesley Buell Frazier's mother never sees, that the loading dock foreman never sees at the Texas School Book Depository, but only Randall and Frazier, brother, sister, claim that Oswald brings into the car with Wesley Buell Frazier. The mother says he's got a small little lunch bag that goes into the side pocket of his jacket. And that's, in fact, he has nothing in his hands when he gets out of Frazier's car at the loading dock parking lot in back of the Texas School Book Depository, where this humongous package is that Frazier then tries to shrink down into curtain rod size, that he can only cup it in his hand, and some other dance that Frazier does. The reality of it is, all of this is made up post-assassination, the paper included.
All right. Question for Mark from sunny Scotland. Could it be the target was Connolly to put the frighteners on JFK, but the snipers weren't as good as they thought they were?
Listen, nobody shoots anybody for frighteners. I don't know what movie that's in, but nobody shoots somebody to scare somebody sitting next to them. Okay, it's just some crock of shit. I mean, Hootman. But, look, you gave us Scotch tape, and I appreciate that. And I can only recommend the Dan Aykroyd episode where he plays a Scotsman in a mall that only sells Scotch tape. I'm just joking, of course. The reality of it is, he got hit by another bullet by another gunman, Connolly. I think there was an attempt to take out Connolly. Dead man tell no tales. And I think LBJ fought vociferously at the Fort Worth Hotel, the Texas Hotel, to keep Connolly out of that seat. LBJ failed at that, and he said, all right, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. He didn't tell Connolly to get the hell out of that seat, that's for sure. But the reality of it is, I think Connolly believed in his heart of hearts, or hoping that this would happen, was that the assassination would occur at the Trade Mart. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. I think the Trade Mart was the backup target to Dealey Plaza. Look, everybody was on a need-to-know basis. I mean, nobody needs to know everything. And that includes Dulles, for Christ's sakes. I don't think anybody knew everything. Nobody.
Well, any missions are compartmentalized, and generally speaking, like when I was studying at Fort Irwin, when I was stationed there, one of the differences between the tactics of the U.S. versus the tactics of the Soviet Union was Soviet Union were like master chess players, where they had every single thing calculated all the way down, but every question had to go up the entire chain of command and back down. Whereas the U.S. style is much more cellular, broken up in the sense of, I want you to take that hill, I want you to take that hill, and they don't really go into the details on how to take the hill, just give me that thing over there. So they don't necessarily know exactly what they're doing, just kind of an overall sometimes in the stance. Question, why was JFK killed so brutally for show and not poisoned, knowing all of his sores?
No, you just answered your own question. I mean, it's done for show, because if somebody said that a guy was not brutally killed, it might be a question as to when he was dead, who killed him, what happened behind the scenes. I would say you might want to look at Stalin for that matter. You know what I mean? You're taken out and shot in public to make a statement to the people that you're influencing about the shooting in public. Sure, they could have. I mean, obviously, you could have probably, poisoned him or done something like that. But I mean, those are erratic things that then, if it doesn't work, you've got the conspirators who are really vulnerable, Eric. You know what I mean? If your doctor saves you from being poisoned and they all of a sudden, I'm just making this up, but they find out there was arsenic put in your drink. Okay, now what? They round up the people involved in that. The plot's revealed. All of a sudden, it begins to look like the Smedley Butler bankers plot with the Morgan bankers trying to overthrow FDR in the 30s. And he finds out who they are, FDR, and you can see this in our Smedley Butler episode, but he doesn't do anything because they know that he knows that they know, and it's a standoff. You know what I mean? So again, blowing his head off in public is done for political, visual, powerful reasons. That's why it's done. So you can make a statement like, he's dead, the king is dead, we're in charge.
Yeah, brazen, literally. Why is the magic bullet theory still perpetuated? Wasn't it the configuration of the seating in the car corrected so the trajectory of the bullets lined up with the wounds to JFK and the Gov? I would argue
that would be some configuration of the seats in the car to line that up. I mean, How does that end up in a guy's left wrist and his hand and his thigh? There's no seating configuration that's going to make that dog hunt. That's for sure. Well, why is it still perpetuated, Eric? I mean, Eric can answer that. I mean,
I don't think it is. I think they're moving. They've shifting the goalposts. Now they got Paul Landis, and sort of starting to say, there's multiple shooters, but one was Oswald. So they kind of
they are moving that goalpost, but they're not moving the magic bullet goalpost. They're merely the configuration hasn't changed, Eric. I mean, that magic bullet ends up $3.99 on the stretcher. They're just changing the chain of custody. That's all they're changing is the chain of custody, because $3.99 is still considered the magic bullet that does all that damage. I mean, until somebody says otherwise, that's still the same. Right. That's another issue. Them making Oswald part of the conspiracy. That's a separate goalpost moving issue. Yeah.
And multiple shooters, which Landis is saying there was multiple shooters from the front. There was definitely a shooter from the front. So It's kind of like
Right,
yeah,
but none of that eliminates what this guy's question is: a perpetuation of the magic bullet theory. It doesn't end that. There's speculation about this, that, and the other, but nobody has ever taken that away. Remember, they try to conflate that in the Paul Landis story. They just go, "This really ends the magic bullet theory." And when you drill down into the articles and the book, you just go, "Well, how does it end the magic bullet theory?" You're just saying, "I found the magic bullet. I, Paul Landis." And now I put it on this stretcher. Okay, that's the only thing Paul Landis is involved in, Eric. There is nothing else. It's just him saying, I need to publish a book. How can I get myself into this book? All right, get me the guy, James Robinaud. Let's see what he's got. James Robinaud, how you doing? How about if you found the bullet on the seat in the car and you put it in the stretcher? And then Landis says, I know, but Sam Kinney said that 10 years ago, Eric. Okay, but he's dead. And so's the guy who helped him. And so's the nurse. Let's go. Let's all do it. Come on. But it doesn't negate the magic bullet theory itself.
Fair enough. 221B has an important question. Where would one go to meet a honeypot? Asking for someone else.
Go telephone for George Clooney. George Clooney telephone. I mean, it depends who you are. I mean, why don't you ask Anthony Weiner how he found his honeypot? Ahmadine, he was honeypotted. I mean, the extent of these people who are doing this are in all walks of life. It's not just spying. It's show business people, media people, anyone who's got a Chinese wife who's a senator from Kentucky people, anyone who's got a Chinese wife who's the head of Fox, Rupert Murdoch people, who was Les Moonves, who was the head of CBS. I mean, it goes on and on and on and on and on. You can't be, there aren't that many available Chinese wives out there, my friends. I mean, these are honeypot programs, and there's all different levels. There's a spy version, but there's also media versions of this, and these marriages of convenience. Fang Fang is definitely one of them, that's for sure.
And she didn't even have to go through and get married. She got all the action without bothering the rest.
You know why they do it, Eric? Because it works.
Yeah. Question: why is the shooting always a right-wing conspiracy when LBJ was on the left?
Not always a right-wing conspiracy at all. I mean, that's your opinion.
And LBJ is not really a leftist. A Democrat of then is very different than a Democrat of now.
It's not considered right or left. I mean, they tried to. The original attempts were to frame it as a Castro-Cuban Soviet conspiracy. So they would launch an invasion of the island of Cuba in Bay of Pigs 2.0, another invasion of Cuba. That was the original motivation by Philip, what's his name, down in Mexico City. The plan was to trigger an invasion of the island of Cuba. But LBJ got into power and he immediately put a kibosh to that. He didn't need an invasion of the island of Cuba. You know what I'm saying? He didn't need the aggravation. But that was the original plan. So it was geopolitical more than right wing or left wing. You know what I mean? The Soviets immediately came out and said, we had nothing to do with this. Internally, we found out, again, through, I think, the Venona papers, that they believed that LBJ was the prime suspect themselves internally, which they never said because they were playing a game of chess themselves. They had to live with LBJ. You can't just publicly come out and say, by the way, he's the assassin, and then have some peace talks later on. But internally, we've now found out that the Soviets believed that LBJ was the prime suspect in the assassination of JFK. And
they're familiar with that procedure anyway. Internally, they kind of had a little bit of their own. So it's like, hey, well, that's the way things are done in some countries.
Right.
I renegade. Everything is a rich man's trick. 8 shooters.
British documentary. Leave me alone with this thing already. I don't go get American history from New Zealand. I mean, think about what you're saying, folks. Imagine you watched a documentary on the assassination by a guy from Ghana. He's from Ghana. He knows the assassination. You would just be, are you kidding me? But the British, whoa, they've got that great voiceover. They've got footage. It's much better. They're great at doing these phony documentaries, but it had some truth in it, Mark. No, really? It had truth in it. Imagine a documentary that had no truth. How long would you watch that documentary, bro? Right? the thing is, you got to look.
Well, Al
where,
Gore had one.
yeah, you got to look at the source of the documentary. Where is it coming from? What country? Cui bono? Who gains by it? And then you could watch something. Just don't put on something and go, holy crap, I can't believe what I just saw, and just take it as with whole cloth. Think about who's making these things, people.
All right. Any info on Chicago plot and Thomas Valley? What became of him? Did he serve prison?
No, he went out west. I'm sorry, go on. I'm sorry.
Have any researchers interviewed his family? Chicago tied with DM killing, smoking gun for CIA culpability. In my opinion, we covered him in the Bolden episode, I think, right?
Yeah, he went out west. I think he moved to Denver. He never, he was released by the intelligence unit of the two guys that are Chicago police. Has nothing to do with DM's killing. He's got nothing to do with that. But the reality of it is, Thomas Arthur Valley was allowed to go about his business after he was released, Eric.
Okay.
Again, Edwin Black, Chicago Reader, is where the article is if you want to learn more about the Chicago plot.
Posted on Locals.
It's on Locals.
We did post it there.
Reader.
Mark, why do you say it's not a true Harvey Lee Oswald who was signed out of the TSBD? No true flag shows the document. It's confusing.
Never seen a document. Could be anything the guy put on the camera. Why would you believe it? Let me flip the question. Why would you believe it? Because this guy told you in a documentary? Come on, bro. Why would you believe it?
Okay.
I mean, everybody was sent home. Everybody was sent home. There was no work. Everybody went home. Some people went to the movies. Some people went home. Some people went and shot heroin like Givens. I don't understand the premise of these Oswald left the school book depository storylines. They don't go anywhere. I don't understand. What about it? What's the deal? He was on the run. He gave a woman his taxi cab, for Christ's sakes. He got out of the cab, opened the door, and gave it to an elderly woman. That's how much he was on the run, Oswald, after he got out of work. He just was running nonstop from a bus to a taxi cab because the bus got stuck in traffic. But he's not fleeing anything. All
right. Have we discussed the Parrott memo and George H.W. Bush's bizarre phone call to the Houston FBI at 1:45 Central Time on November 22nd, 1963?
Don't know anything about it. There's no record of it at all. It's just a bizarre memo that people created out of thin air. Do you have an audio recording of the phone? Let me just back that up. Just back that up for 1 second. I want to cut this up into little pieces for a second. If you could go backwards.
Well, I got to go find it again.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry to bother you. But anyway, the point is, where's the phone record from? Where does it come from? Where's the call? What's the number? Who said it? The guy said, this is George W. Bush calling the FBI. Alert, alert, alert. Drill down. Break it up. Break it up. Drill down. I know this is part of urban legend, urban law. I know he becomes the head of the CIA, and I know you badly want to link him to the assassination of JFK. Nobody's ever done so. It's never been done. He's never been linked to this. But are you standing in front of the building? It's not him. Again, there's nobody credible who links him to this assassination. But they sure as hell want to.
All right, question. Were there painted lines on the curb to show Greer the shooting area? And if so, where are good pics of them?
I don't know. That's something that's very controversial. There apparently were lines on the curb. I don't know if it's to show Greer the shooting area, but they were painted and they disappeared later. But yeah, I saw photos of them.
I don't know why they would show Greer or anything. He's just driving.
Yeah, I mean, Greer's got nothing to do with it.
A lot of these questions would see when it crosses that point, Right.
A lot of these questions combine two or three ideas. And not that there's nothing to do with Lisa, but some of these questions combine two or three separate ideas. Were there painted lines on the curb? Yes. Yes, that's an answer to show Greer the shooting area. If so, the good pics. There are. And that's a separate issue. I don't know what it has to do with Greer. Greer just hit the brakes and turned around 15 times to make sure Kennedy was shot before he took off. But the curb painted lines, yes.
All right. Brand new supporter. I've been watching for the last week, and you guys are a wealth of knowledge. Thank you for what you do. So hi from Canada.
We're not coming up there. We're not coming up there though. we'll never get out. We'll never get out alive if we go to Canada.
No, with the prime minister, he knows that we hang out with Viva Fry, so that puts danger. Mark Lane helped write Executive Action. Amazing, came out in 1973. Thoughts? And
B-level film, not very good, hard to watch, over the top. It was just a film at its time in 1973. I think Burt Lancaster, Will Greer, I think, is in it. What did JFK get wrong? I don't know what JFK the movie. There's a number of screenwriters on Executive Action, by the way. Simply because it's a movie about a presidential assassination doesn't make it a great movie. I mean, there's other movies out there. I suggest you might want to look at The Parallax View with Warren Beatty, which involves a shooting of a presidential candidate inside a arena that looks surprisingly like the Dallas Trade Mart at the end of that movie. And you'll find that there's more of interest in The Parallax View than there is in Executive Action. As to what JFK got wrong, I have no idea what he got wrong. The reality of it is, after all these years, they've yet to find anything wrong. If you want to see the JFK book of the film, everything in the script is footnoted, and Oliver traces all the little tidbits in the script with footnotes. I mean, you talk about going the extra mile. There's things that he doesn't know happened. I mean, that's for sure.
Yeah. His footnotes are voluminous.
Right. So within this book, if you want to buy one book, that would be the book to get, because it's got all the articles in there in the Washington Post and everything else, which is fine. Oliver's rebuttals and things like that. But the real prize in that book is the footnoted, vetted by, I presume it's the lawyers vetting the script for Warner Brothers, which you have to do when you do a nonfiction script. They say, where do you get all these facts from? And you have to vet it. So he footnotes every single little tidbit in that script, and you see the veracity of the script. Despite the detractors, despite the maniacs, read the book of the film, folks, and you will see how truthful and how dead on that script is and how the movie holds up for now, 30 years?
Yeah, scary. Rich Buddy, did you cover Badge Man? Have you seen photo analysis?
I didn't really cover it. I never really bought into it. The idea that the shooter would wear his complete Dallas police uniform while killing the president of the United States, hiding in the bushes, was laughable to me. But, you want to stand out like a sore thumb, take a rifle with a police uniform on and shoot the president in the head, and then tell me that that's a good idea. Okay.
Thanks for the info on Tippit. Do you know where the full version of their audio tapes is? What I saw was edited. Eric, it's on some obscure Beatles conspiracy channel. I'll send you a link on Locals later.
I have my own, and you're not getting it. So I mean, I don't know where it is. But these people ask me, do you know where the bootleg Grateful Dead album is? I go, yeah, it's in my garage. I mean, I don't know where it is for you, bro. I mean, I've got a copy, and you're not getting it.
Oh, Mark, do you believe Jim Lavelle was completely truthful in his accounts of the Oswald shooting?
Again, could the question be any broader? I don't know what specifically about Lavelle, Al. What completely truthful on what accounts? Truthful about what? And what do you believe about Jim Lavelle? Lavelle's just a guy shepherding him from point A to point B. I mean, I hope if somebody shoots you, that you're a better shot than you are, Lee. Hope they're a better shot than you are, Lee. And Lee chuckles to that. Now, keep in mind, dead men don't tell tales. So that's Lavelle, could be Bartok. Who knows? Who knows?
Could be. Chauncey Holt was E. Howard Hunt.
Well, that's highly doubtful, since E. Howard Hunt was E. Howard Hunt, and Chauncey Holt's a separate human being. But I'll take the $2.
No sniper in the nest rumble rant. Tippit was taken to a hospital after the shooting. What time was listed at the hospital as to when his body arrived? Just trying to get a timeline straight.
I think it was moments after the shooting. What do you think? It was hours later? Or, I mean, he expired pretty quickly. I don't know what to make of that. I mean, he's buried in the ground there in a cemetery. He was killed. It's funny because a lot of the bullets don't match in the Tippit case. They got this, the call out for an 38 automatic that's over the police band radio, and then Oswald's taken with a revolver. Then he's got another. I mean, there's too many bullets, too many guns. They don't match the bullets that are in Tippit. What is with the Tippit stuff today? What is it? His birthday?
There's always somebody. I mean,
no, but there's just 35 questions. Not that I care.
It's not Kilgallen.
No. But I don't mind the Tippit. I'm just surprised that there's so many questions about Tippit.
I don't know. Maybe there's something coming up or something in the news.
Well, it's the anniversary of his death. Also, keep in mind.
Coming soon.
It's the 60th anniversary of Tippit's killing.
Yeah, it's C.S. Lewis and Aldous Huxley.
That's right. But they weren't murdered in cold blood.
Well, murder by acid, one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let me see. Brother Ted, I was amazed to learn JFK's autopsy notes were burned by the doctor who wrote them. How does that get dismissed as nothing to see here?
Well, he says his rap is it had blood on it, and he didn't want the people to be ghoulish and look at the autopsy notes in the future with blood on them, like Lincoln's stuff. And then when people looked at the Lincoln story, none of it was true. So he made up some story about Lincoln with some ghoulish people looking at some blood-stained Lincoln paraphernalia, which turned out not to be true. So somebody gave him that cock and bull story to cover his burning of the notes. I mean, they were burned because they were of value and told a tale.
All right. Is Marina Oswald's second husband an agent or fixer?
An agent or fixer. He's either an agent or a fixer. Yeah, one or the other. But he's definitely an agent of some sort. Absolutely.
Okay.
He worked for Collins Radio, which was a electronics eavesdropping front business in Dallas with military contracts. Big, good-looking guy. Apparently smacked her around. But there's a lot of motivation to I know this gets too hard for people to believe, but if you've had girlfriends from Eastern Europe, part of your test of masculinity is they provoke you, a provocation, which leads to domestic violence on occasion. This is apparently part of Marina Oswald's game. She did it to this guy. He smacked her around. They got a divorce. She did it with Oswald. Part of it could be to get free. Part of it could be an Eastern European female thing, which they do all the time. And people who've had these relationships know what I'm talking about. If you don't, you're going to think I'm a misogynist or something. It's just a fact of life,
All right. Poindexter Hunley, when can we expect a Mel Torme episode?
That would be a good idea. Velvet Fog. Who knows what he was into? If we drill down, maybe we'll find out some really weird stuff about the Velvet Fog. Not to be confused with the movie The Fog or The Mist, but the Velvet Fog. And he wasn't gay. Well, I don't know why they chose velvet. His voice was velvety is where it comes from.
All right. RHB, regarding Prayer Man, I know Mark thinks Lee Harvey Oswald was on second floor during shooting, but any chance researchers are onto something and Lee Harvey Oswald is indeed the Prayer Man?
Could be. Not for me. I don't know. I don't, I know where he was. There's witnesses. It's pretty well established. I mean, sometimes less is more, people. Sometimes, like Occam's razor, it is what it is. Guy's eating lunch, goes to get a Coke. Truly comes by, says, does that man work here? Yes, he does. They've shot the president, Lee, and it is what it is. I mean, if you want to read other stuff into that, okay.
All right. Dog Boy, is it true that the actual X marking the spot where Kennedy was shot in the street is really a few feet off of the actual mark? Keep up the great job.
It's a moving car, which shot. I mean, it's a moving car, bro. I mean, it's not a medical site. It's just a mark on the street, for Christ's sakes. It's been painted over and repainted a bunch of times.
So who knows? Dave Ryan, always great stuff. See you in Dallas. See you there.
No, but I'm saying just about the X. I mean, it's where the car is. It's not where his head is and the X on the street. Right. It's just a general marking place of an X on the spot there.
Yeah, and it's hard to know because the car wasn't still there. It's not like they later on said,
no, I know.
No, they didn't draw a profile around the car. It's an approximation, and
yeah. I mean, when you go to the plaza and you look at the picket fence, if you go behind the picket fence and look at the X, you'll get a general idea of just how close this shot is, you know, and why it did so much damage.
All right, and coming in hot at the end for the last super chat before we go to locals. Beavis Wallace, $100. Hey, brothers, serious question about Jackie Kennedy and if she suffered from PTSD. Did she know that LBJ killed her husband?
Okay, so that's two questions. That's $50 a question there.
Fair enough.
I don't believe she suffered from PTSD. I've never heard that. And she, according to Manchester in his book, believed that LBJ killed her husband. She then goes to court to try to remove that chapter from the Manchester book, which she authorized herself and told everyone to speak to Manchester as the official book on the assassination. So in a series of physical interviews where Manchester meets with her, William Manchester, this is, she tells him in the interview that she believes that LBJ killed her husband. She then, when she reads it in galley form, this is like, you know, a couple of years later, the book comes out. It's not out yet. It will later be serialized before it's even coming out as a book. But she reads the galley form, has a heart attack, you know, when she sees it in print and tells Manchester to remove it. Manchester says, you authorize this. I'm not removing it. She then, with the help of Bobby Kennedy, RFK Jr.'s father, goes to court against Manchester, William Manchester, the author, to remove these documents from this chapter from the book. The book is then, she's successful in the court case with very deep pockets against William Manchester, very awkward trial in New York, very sensational trial in New York. The chapter is then removed. It's put into a vault in Manchester's house. And when Manchester dies, a safe, his son opens up the safe, and we were waiting for 40 freaking years for this to be revealed by the son. So the son reads it and goes, oh boy, and puts it back in the safe, Eric, to be opened. I have no idea when. Everybody was assuming the son was going to release.
When the files are released with the rest of the assassination files.
Dude, right? I was like, all right, the son's a good guy. He's got no dog in this hunt. He's going to release the thing. He reads it, has a heart attack, and puts it back in the vault. The son himself.
Wow. And people are sneaking in at the last minute, trying to get this here. John P.S., this is so important. Vince Saladria, or Saladria.
I think there's an N that goes there, Salandria.
Salandria. Said we live with a gangster government, both sides. Okay.
You know, these are broad statements. You know, I mean, what can you say?
Dog Boy smoked a joint behind the picket fence on his 40th birthday.
Wow. I think you're not you may not be the first person to do that. By the way, they have a recording of that they've digitized now at the Smithsonian of everyone who's ever smoked a joint at the picket fence. So Dog Boy, if that is your real name, which I find that to be highly dubious that somebody would actually be named Dog Boy, they have a record of you smoking that joint before the statute of limitations ended. And you'll be getting a call pretty soon on the 60th anniversary.
All right. So on that note, I just dropped a link in the chat. It's also a pinned chat. While we play out the outro, folks, you could be going over to Locals. Again, you don't have to pay for it. You can follow for free. Appreciate it. We want all the members there. And if you do want to support us, that'd be great too. Mark has a PayPal if you want to donate to his book fund. I have a PayPal if you just want to give me money. We have merch below, which include the JFK trading cards, which I definitely think you might want to check out in the description. And Oswald says, follow us to locals.
Let's go over there. How do we get over there, Eric?
Follow the links.
Oh, I got to find these links
the
now.
Description. You'll stay right here, Mark.
Oh, okay. All right. I thought I had to do that too.
So.
Oh, I see. I got you now. I thought I had it.